I worked at the company for 14 years, and for 12 of those, I really loved my job. My job consisted of two main parts. The first part was sales, which took place outside the office at client locations. I traveled a lot and sometimes even flew abroad to work with clients, providing them with top quality products. We weren't the cheapest, but our product was the best. I was the best employee when it came to delivering the product, and clients left glowing reviews about my personal approach and how I brought their visions to life. This brought me a lot of repeat orders and new clients thanks to word of mouth. Working at client locations has always been the most important aspect for me. It took a lot of time and effort, but I knew that this is what allowed the company to grow. I traveled to different regions, sometimes going abroad several times a month, to make sure our clients were getting the best product. I always aimed to be as involved as possible in every project, which allowed me to build long-term relationships with clients. My goal was not just to sell, but to establish a connection, to show the client that their needs were our top priority. Gradually, I became one of the most valuable employees in the company. My clients recommended us to each other, and I received a huge number of orders. It was nice to work with regular clients, but I found even more joy in attracting new ones who trusted us based on recommendations. It wasn't a coincidence. I was really proud that I could offer them not just a product, but a solution to their problems. The second part of my job is office activities, and that's where I faced some challenges. I've always hated cold calling potential clients from phone directories. That was the most unpleasant part of my job. I didn't like being the one to call first and push my product. I tried to do it many times, but without much success. It's no surprise that when I was offered the chance to stop doing that and focus on other tasks, I happily agreed. Instead of cold calling, I started preparing products, developing them for new orders, and training new employees. I was also tasked with solving various issues related to quality and delivery. When employees were sick, I would cover for them to ensure that our work wouldn't suffer. This became one of my main responsibilities, and I handled it really well. I liked that the company valued my experience and trusted me with important tasks. We also started to expand the team, which meant that my role was becoming increasingly important. The company started to grow, and I was proud to be a part of that process. 3 months after I joined the company, I became a part of its growth. My colleagues and I worked with full dedication, and soon the company reached a new level. Over the 12 years, I saw how our company became successful, and that was due to the great team and the quality of work that always put the client first. I not only worked in the main office, but I was often sent to other regions to train employees, and sometimes even to so-called rented companies to train their staff. It was important for the company's expansion, and I was proud to be a part of that process. I was also a guest lecturer at the university, teaching medical students how to explain complex concepts to people who don't have a basic understanding of medicine. It was a new experience for me, but I felt that I could be helpful by sharing my knowledge with others. After 12 years of working, I was earning a decent salary that I was happy with. It wasn't a huge amount, but what mattered to me was that I worked for a stable company that values its employees and helps them grow. I held a respectable position, and I enjoyed my job. At one point, when the company started to expand, the owner decided to sell part of the business, including my local office. He said he would be happy if I stayed with the company, but for that, I would need to move to another office, which meant my commute would increase at least fourfold. The alternative was to stay in the old office, but with the new owner, and I chose the second option because moving was too difficult and inconvenient for me. The new owner worked in our company for a while, before the deal. To understand how we function, everyone thought she was just accompanying us, but no one expected her to become the new owner. She started doing a staff cleanup and firing employees. It was unexpected for me as the company was becoming more successful every year, but she did what she decided to do, and I ended up being one of those affected. Among those who stayed, I wasn't very comfortable, but I kept working despite the changes. After a while, when the new owner took over the company, she started doing a staff cleanup. She fired many employees, including the manager who left to start his own business. Now the new owner took on the role of manager, and in the office it was just the secretary, me, and a few new employees who were earning minimum wage. It was unexpected, as many who had already achieved good results in the company were let go. For the clients, nothing changed. The company's name stayed the same, but the internal processes changed. My role in the company now involved training the remaining employees and also recommended a few new employees I had worked with before. One of them was my close friend, and the other was my girlfriend. Both of them went through the interview and were hired. From the very first days of working with the new owner, it became clear that the company's situation was declining. The owner decided to raise the prices of the product while lowering its quality. New clients didn't notice it, but the old clients immediately felt the difference. We started offering a worse product for the same price. It didn't go unnoticed. 95% of the old clients left and new clients weren't coming back. The product that used to be the best on the market has now become just one of the options. Not particularly appealing to clients. The situation was getting worse every month. The number of complaints skyrocketed and employee turnover became just colossal. People were leaving after just a few months of working because the minimum wage they were paid didn't match the effort they had to put in. My girlfriend quit, and my friend, despite that, stayed at the company but started actively looking for a new job. I tried to stay positive, but one day the new owner called me and demanded that I come to the office urgently. I had just finished working with a client, and I needed to head to my next meeting, which was in 2 hours. I tried to explain that because of the office's distance I would only make it in 5 minutes, but she insisted. I arrived at the office, and as soon as I walked in, she laid out a list of complaints. I was stunned. The complaints were about my vacation and that I was late to work on May 12th because of a car breakdown, and even that I supposedly violated safety regulations while delivering products. I was in shock because I had never violated any rules. All these accusations were absurd, and I began to prepare for defense, but it didn't stop there. She offered me 2 options. Either I sign a 0-hours contract and work for minimum wage, or she would fire me with 2 weeks' notice. I refused the 0-hours contracts and stated that I wouldn't work under those conditions. My work has always been productive, and I wasn't going to agree to such unfairness. Instead, I started looking for a way to protect my rights. I know that my efforts for the company deserve respect. I went home to think about the situation, but I knew I didn't want to work under those conditions anymore. After I refused the offer to switch to a 0-hours contract, the owner started to get nervous. She demanded that I continue working under a 2-week notice period as if I had been fired for gross misconduct. I knew she was trying to set me up and put me in a tough spot, but I couldn't let her violate my rights. I had continuous employment, and I knew I could prove my case. She tried to convince me that according to her rules, termination did not require notice since she was firing me for gross misconduct. However, I was sure that by law I was entitled to 12 weeks notice since my contract stated 1 week of notice for each year of service with the company. I quoted the relevant laws to convince her. But she wouldn't admit that she was wrong. She looked confused, but still decided that I wouldn't have the right to full notice. After long negotiations, she agreed to give me 2 options. She looked confused, but still decided that I would not be entitled to full notice. After much negotiation, she agreed to give me 2 options. Either I sign a 0-hours contract and keep working for minimum wage, or I get 2 months' notice with termination. I understood that she wanted to keep me in the company at least for a while I was handling key orders. One of the major clients I was working with was supposed to receive the product during this time. She tried to send other employees in my place, but there were problems every time. And it wasn't the employee's fault. Working with this client just required specific knowledge and skills that only I had. I offered her a compromise. Well, if she reconsider the charge and drops the gross misconduct charge, I'll be willing to work my 12 weeks. That was my way of showing that I was ready to work under good conditions, but only if I wasn't being pushed around. And in the end, after a lot of thought, she agreed and offered me to stay with the company full-time to continue working. I started my 12-week stint, working just as hard as before, despite all the conflicts. I kept doing my job with the same dedication, training new employees and maintaining high product quality. Over the last few weeks of work, I felt the owner becoming increasingly irritated. She couldn't hide the fact that I was difficult to control, and this irritated her even more. The owner also decided to isolate me from the rest of the team, and one day I wasn't even offered to participate in a corporate spam event that all the employees attended. It was rather small act, petty, pathetic, but it perfectly demonstrated the new owner's attitude towards me. I wasn't really interested in the spa treatments, but the very fact that I was excluded was a clear signal of how much she disliked me. When the time came to complete my work, I was given no thanks or even parting words. It was especially painful because I had worked at the company for 14 years and deserved at least a little recognition. The only one who showed me a lot of attention was my former boss, who became my friend. She gave me a few nice gifts, but all of that happened after she left the company. Meanwhile, after my term ended, the situation in the company kept getting worse. One of the employees I trained as a replacement quit, unhappy with how the owner treated him. I found out about it when he came to my house to tell me he was leaving. My former colleagues started quitting because the working conditions were getting tougher and tougher. Many of them moved to other companies where they worked under better conditions. After I finished my work at the company, everything continued to go downhill. My friend, whom I trained as a replacement, quit because he couldn't handle the pressure and the working conditions set by the new owner. He told me he was disappointed with how he was treated and that he was being made to work for minimum wage doing the same job that I used to do for a higher reward. I was shocked, but honestly, I wasn't surprised. The company kept losing clients, and when I found out that the owner refused to refund unhappy customers, citing force majeure, it only worsened her reputation. The reviews on Facebook and Google hit rock bottom, and I knew it was just a matter of time before the company would collapse. Clients started leaving, and employees like me couldn't stand the atmosphere anymore. Realizing that I needed to protect my rights, I reached out to a labor lawyer, and we started preparing for the lawsuit. The day after my last working day, I sent an official letter notifying them of my wrongful termination. It was an important step to show that I wasn't just going to give up. As soon as my letter was delivered to the office, the owner noticed it right away, and as the office assistant told me, she went pale and left her office to call my lawyer. Her reaction showed that she didn't expect me to fight for my rights. I knew the truth was on my side, and I was ready to go all the way. After my lawyer provided her with a transcript of our meeting, she realized that she would not be able to escape responsibility. She tried to make new accusations, but everything she said was refuted by the evidence. As a result, we reached an out-of-court settlement, and she agreed to pay me compensation to avoid further legal costs. After I left, several former clients reached out to me to find out what happened to the company. I told them about the situation, the new owner, and the state of the staff. It was a clear sign to me that the company would no longer be able to restore its reputation after all the decisions that had been made. A few months passed, and the office assistant who had become my friend quit. She said she couldn't work with such an owner anymore and didn't feel safe. This confirmed that the work atmosphere in the company was completely broken. I, on my part, started a new life in a different industry. My skills turned out to be useful, and I'm earning more than ever. I'm working with a great boss, I have opportunities for growth, and I feel like a complete, valuable professional. I work with a great boss, I have opportunities for growth, and I feel like a valued professional. Meanwhile, the business of the company where I worked for 14 years continues to decline. Clients are leaving, employees are quitting, and the owner, not realizing their mistakes, continues to struggle with the consequences of their decisions. I no longer worry about what will ultimately happen to this company. I've learned a lot over the years, and now, looking back, I can say that this experience has been an important lesson for me. I realize that work should be a place where you're valued and where you can grow. It's important to surround yourself with people who respect your work ethic and are ready to support you. My opinion is this. This story shows how important it is to manage your business properly. It's important to respect your employees. Quick cuts and hasty attempts in an effort to maximize profits by significantly cutting quality and drastically reducing costs are definitely not the best solution for any business or organization. And in the unfortunate case of our owner, it ultimately led to tragic consequences. When it comes to key employees who directly work with clients, it can indeed be a total disaster. I'm not a businessman, but I'm sure that respecting people and sensible economics are the keys to long-term success. And now I'm curious to know what you think about this. How right was it to fire such an employee, considering the circumstances in this particular situation? Yes, business always requires tough decisions. Yes, employees are an important part of a business's success. But at the same time, no, that was an unfair dismissal. And no, if the process is automated, then it's not that important. So, I'm looking forward to your comments.